We know we need to form a non-government entity to oversee the program and the distribution of any of the funds. But before we invest a lot of time and expense in that to set that up, we really need a much better clarification of what is required of that oversight group. I want a little attention to the Watseka sales tax. As with many cities, counties, and states, the city of Watseka is looking for new revenue streams. Increasing the sales tax is an option that is being considered. The city council handled it really well so far, I felt. An increase was proposed. The mayor and other council members did some research. They held a public meeting to get the taxpayers' input, and I think appropriately they tabled it for some further study. There are definitely pros and cons to an increase, but I have to stand with the opposition. With all the bad media about the floods, the pension shortfall, the population drain, loss of people, the loss of businesses, Watseka does not need any more negativity for companies wanting to start up or move to Watseka, nor do we need any revenue losses to businesses that currently call Watseka home. I really don't want to see Watseka's name on the list near the top with Danville, Champaign, Chicago. It might help pay some bills, but it would definitely not encourage residents or businesses to move to Watseka and to Iroquois County. If you have to pay, we all try to preach shop at home. If you have to pay a little more for products and services in your home area, you probably will practice a little shop at home. But if you have to pay even more for taxes, that might be more than the average consumer is willing to swallow. The argument that out-of-towners will help pay our bills is not as solid as it once was. When our locals drive through other towns with lower tax rates, they'll no doubt be tempted to stop and do their business there. And that's not even to mention, to bring into the conversation, Amazon, eBay, online sellers. They've got nearly everything available to have it on your doorstep in 2 days, and their mobility allows them to pay and charge far lower taxes, if any at all. Residents will sometimes vote for tax increases if something bright, new, and shiny, or at least something positive, will come from it, but raising taxes to pay old past due inflated costs never sits well with voters. What we need to do in Watseka and throughout the county, but especially in Watseka, is to make it easier for people to set up shop and make it a positive experience to become a new resident or a new member of the business community. Increasing population of both people and businesses, which increases revenue, is the answer really for a bright future. Definitely not overloading taxpayers for miscalculations of the past. Another thing that's been in the news quite a bit is the Casey's building, Nichols Paint and Fab, Department of Motor Vehicles. If you listen to the radio or read the paper, you're no doubt aware of that controversy that came up over the former Casey's building in downtown Watseka. A lowball and kind of offhand of sorts offer was made to Casey's by Mayor John Allhands, and surprisingly, Casey's accepted it. I personally saw nothing wrong with that, trying to take control of a blighted area and use it to make something positive happen in a town. It's a good idea. The thought was to short-term lease it to Nichols Paint and Fab for a retail sales location. Their TV show on the Velocity Channel has been renewed, and they are currently filming their second season. Nichols plan to sell numerous souvenirs related to their show, over the counter and online, and to use that as a staging area for visitors wanting to tour their shop facilities, which kind of shocked me when Justin told me how many people see the TV show, and when they're coming through Watseka, they want to see the shop. I lost my place here. It also surprised me at the revenue that some of the more popular of those shows have achieved with their identity products. It's in the millions. There was some disagreement among the council members as well as the general public about the city of Watseka becoming a landlord. Those two were valid opinions, and during a special meeting July 30th, the council voted to rescind the resolution and cancel the purchase. That special meeting was to discuss the sales tax increase and the purchase of the building. Another bid on that building had been made by a Watseka businessman whose intention was to secure a new location for the Illinois Department of Motor Vehicles in order to keep that office open in Watseka. Their current lease runs out soon and won't be renewed. In fact, that building is potentially sold or being sold to a national retailer. That location, I should say. Without a new home for the DMV, we could lose a few jobs, but considerable business that office brings to Iroquois County. Tremendous number of people that come to Watseka from Kankakee, for example, to go to that office. We're hoping now that a deal can be completed for the with the businessman and the DMA, and we're also hoping that we can find an alternative opportunity for the Nichols Signature Products in their showroom. The DNR grant's been in the news too. We met again last week concerning the Department of Natural Resources grant to tear down the significantly flooded homes in Watseka. There appears to be good likelihood that the approximately $5 million grant will be awarded. Previous reports had the number of potential teardowns at 218 homes. That number's been revised back down to more like 128, or I was told at least it'll be less than 150. Of course, this is a voluntary program, as I mentioned previously, so it still remains to be seen how many phones will actually be raised, will be torn down. But regardless, there will be a significant property tax impact on the various taxing entities. We're now working on kind of a two-pronged problem of what to do with our displaced citizens to keep the county from losing more residents, and what, if any, programs can be brought into the county to replace the lost property taxes. And now to add to the ongoing Bosch building saga, a new prospect showed up in the last couple of weeks, but they were quite disappointed to find that the building had been broken into and a bunch of the electrical components had been ripped out and stolen. Some time ago it was discovered that the building had been entered on the south side by the railroad tracks, and wiring relays and things were being torn out of the boxes. The owner of the realtor that is in charge of it was notified. I believe they've filed an insurance claim. But I was in contact with them to try to get a damage estimate because that was needed for prosecution, as I was informed. However, the Watseka Police Department increased their patrols, and with the help of some of the county officers, I believe, Sheriff, they caught the perpetrator red-handed, and he is incarcerated. I was informed that he had pled guilty and is off to the Huskow for 6 years. I spoke with the new prospect over the weekend, and they are still interested, and I will be working with them over the next couple of weeks to provide them with facts and figures and do some legwork on finding some answers to some of the many questions that they have. Well, we need to catch a break out there and get that building back in service. A few miscellaneous things, really. McDonald's is getting closer. There are so many rumors about McDonald's that I would like to try to help out here a little bit. Of all the rumors that you've heard, one of them is true. Well, that probably didn't help, but anyway, I can't confirm anything because I'm not privy to the McDonald's home office discussions, but I can say that I have pushed my preference of the Burger King Flower Shack location from the beginning, and that is one of the rumors. The gas depot building has been demolished. It was heavily damaged by the February flood, and the original plan was to lift the building. That proved to be marginal for that type of building at best, so it was torn down last week. And the last report from the owner was that it will be rebuilt if FEMA guidelines can be realistically achieved. Shorty's, it's close to opening in the former Pizza Hut building. Shorty's was real popular when it was open, popular watering hole and eating spot before the fire. and a lot of people have been missing it. The remodel building is looking great. Anything looks better than an empty building, but Boone's doing a pretty good job there. And there is a buzz starting to build on social media about when it's going to get open. There's been, this probably will be directed to Donna, she's asked me this question before. There's been no forward progress on the intended burgers and beer that I'm aware of. The last that I was told is that they're still in the planning stage. I have been given no indication that their plans have been canceled, but I also have no timeline whatever to report. I don't know if the two new restaurants will have any impact on their decision, but I don't really think it should, because both of those are replacements from disasters. And they were both open and active when Burgers and Beer owners made their decision to come to Watseka and purchase the building here. And finally, we participated in the Nexus and Arga Academy golf outing on Friday. We did it to support them because they're one of the top employers in the county. We didn't do it because it was fun. We did it because we wanted to support them. Just like everything else they do, they run a real quality fundraiser. But it was a beautiful day. There was a huge crowd of golfers over there, and we did get in 9 holes of, I guess you'd call it fun. Before the warning siren went off and we all scurried for cover, we were about as far from the clubhouse as we could get, so along with about 10 other cartloads, we all crowded into a pavilion for refuge. And the wind blew and it rained so hard we could really barely see the green that was right next to us for probably 30 minutes. It just continued to rain, and the course was a lake. When it stopped raining, it was just a lake. We drove back to Watseka and the ground was, if anything, damp. I couldn't believe how hard it rained there. I was thinking flood. But, and I highly recommend that if you get trapped in a rainstorm like that, try to get trapped with one of the beer carts. One of them got stuck with us, and the longer it rained, the less we cared. Any questions this morning? Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Are there any other outside organization reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to the committee. Charlie, you got something?
Very short.
Okay. We can handle that.
On August 8th, I attended the extension meeting, the regional extension, Unit 13. Our meeting is held in Rantoul. It consists of 4 counties, Iroquois, Ford, Vermilion, and Champaign. Meeting started with a comment by everyone attending on why they do attend. And I made the comment that I try to learn about the programs that they offer and what they could do for Iroquois County. There is a lot of programs. If any of you want to look at them, I have the 2017 impact report here that details a lot of the programs they have. I did give some figures. They have 750 programs led by unit staff and volunteers. The 50,000 hours of work contributed by volunteers, 40,000 people directly reached through their programming, and 2.4 page views on the unit website. So I guess they do cover a lot of people and provide a lot of education to the group. We also went over the budget, and I did find, if you were interested in the Iroquois County's funds for the extension, it's $50,000. I think we've had that same figure for the last 2 or 3 years. Other counties, Champaign, $442,000. I'm sorry, not 50,000, 111,300. That's what we've had for the last few years. It was Ford County that had the 50,000, and 100,000 by Vermilion County. I think it's based a lot on population. I didn't think to ask what other things were involved in it. The next 3 upcoming meetings will be on November 1st, February 28th of next year and April 11th of next year. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Alt. Are there any other outside organization reports? Seeing none, we'll move on to the committee reports. Mr. Freeman with zoning.
Your committee to whom was referred, Mr. Chairman and members of the County Board, your committee to whom was referred, Planning and Zoning, would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Administrative Center on August 10th, 2018 at 10:15 a.m. Members present were Raymond, Curtis, and Persley. Sticknoff, McGinnis were absent. Also present, County Board Chairman John Scherr, Supervisor of Assessments Bob Yergler, 911 Director Eric Raymond, Ashcombe Fire Chief Jeff Glenn, Ashcombe Resident Cheryl Camp, County Board Member Charlie Alt, and Wendy Davis with the Times-Republic. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Curtis, seconded by Persley to approve the agenda. Motion carried by voice vote. There were no public comments. The committee reviewed the Planning and Zoning Office report for July. It reads as follows. Building permits 2018, agriculture 1, residential 9, wind towers 0. Building permits fiscal year 18, residential 52, agriculture 3. Building inspections July 2018, 55. Zoning Board of Appeals is scheduled for August 28th at 7 p.m. for 2 solar farm hearings. The parcels are located in Belmont Township and Beaverville Township. Microgrid Energy is handling both requests. Microgrid is the same company that contacted the county about solar opportunities. Planning and Zoning Chairman Raymond distributed a copy of the EPA regulations, while Ashcombe resident Cheryl Camp voiced her concerns on burning restrictions in the county. Mrs. Camp asked the committee to consider putting a burning ordinance in place for Iroquois County. She is currently having issues with her neighbor burning items that causes black smoke. Mrs. Camp said she has contacted the EPA and burning anything that causes black smoke is against EPA regulations and can cause cancer. Mrs. Camp also contacted the police, but her neighbor was alerted to the call and was able to put the fire out before the deputy arrived. Ashcombe Fire Chief Jeff Glenn reiterated that there are regulations on burning anything plastic. County Board Chairman Scherr suggested the matter fall under the nuisance ordinance due to it being an isolated incident. Raymond stated further discussion will be held at the County Board meeting on August 14th and next month's Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. The committee reviewed the claims. It was moved by Persley, seconded by Curtis to pay the bills subject to County Board approval. Roll call vote was taken. Motion carried. During old business, Persley questioned what can be done about the, quote, trashy properties, unquote, in Iroquois County. Yergler said an individual complaint can be filed, but the ordinance is very vague. Persley suggested charging individuals a fine if they do not comply once they have received a notice to clean up their property. During new business, the committee discussed establishing permit fee for solar farms. Yergler recommended a fee of $5,000 based on what is being charged for the wind farms. After further discussion, Raymond suggested $37.50, but the final amount will be decided on the County Board meeting on August 14th. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Curtis, seconded by Persley to adjourn at 10:56 a.m., all of which is respectfully submitted, signed by all members present, and I move for its adoption.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the planning and zoning report, seconded by Mr. Persley. Are there any questions or comments on the report? Mr. Hasbargen.
How did this $3,750 compare to other counties' fees?
I did not know that at the time, so it was just a number to throw out to get to the board. I did make some phone calls yesterday. Will County did not get back to me. And some other counties, Champaign is working on their ordinance. They don't have anything set yet. Kankakee County is $62.50 for the first million of value and $3 per thousand for every thousand afterwards. Vermilion County does not have a solar ordinance. Livingston County is up to $5,000, with $5,000 being 2 megawatts and up. Grundy County is $6,500 for the first million of value and $1 per thousand after. So we're
well under. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's hold off discussion on that. That's a separate matter that'll be taken up next. Right now, we're concerned about approving the report.
You asked me if I had a question. I had a question, so
Okay.
I'm asking.
Fine, that's very fine, but your question has to do with something that's on the next item on the agenda.
We'll discuss it again then, twice.
Charlie? What, where does it say that? Oh, yeah, the 5,000 is based on the 2 megawatt capacity of each tower. Each individual wind tower. It was taken directly off the wind tower permit fee. Yeah, we are, but the 5,000 was taken from the wind ordinance as a permit fee, just as a starting point. Yeah, no, it was a starting point. Mr. Whitlow?
Real quick, I would recommend any community that has a recycling program to take advantage of it. I mean, that's a way to get rid of a lot of that stuff. Like, I can speak for Gilman. It takes care of your plastics, some plastics, like your drinking, your bottles, drinking plastic bottles, and aluminum and papers. They eliminated glass for various reasons, but take advantage of that. That saves the environment.
Chad?
The rural areas don't have that.
Yep. Any other questions?
I guess if there are no further questions on the report, the clerk could call the roll, please.
Bills. Excuse me. Crow. Curtis. Hasbargen. Johnson. Crumweedy.
Yes.
Lemay.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Awful. Persley.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Shore.
Yes.
Sticknot.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Alt. Barron's. 16-0.
That motion's approved 16-0. Next is to establish the building permit fee for solar farms. There's already been a bit of discussion on the matter. Mr. Raymond, would you continue on with that?
Upon research, it does appear that the 5,000 would be under. It just depends how friendly we would want to be towards them and how much business we would like to attract with them, because a permit fee is very important. If it's too high for any project, whether it's solar, wind, even a housing development, it's just going to chase them away. But Chad, you and I had a conversation about the fee structures as the ordinance that we passed.
Yeah,
Okay.
we did have a fee structure in there, so we have to make sure that our fee stuff reference that section, amended, just so that it's done right.
Could you speak into your microphone, please?
When Dan was asking me about where the permit fees were, I just mentioned to him that it's in section 4 and we just need to make sure that our motion references to amend that particular section from $500 to whatever dollar amount.
The 500 is for the application fee, isn't it?
The application for a permit. It's a permit application, the fee to apply for your permit. And that's what,
That's separate from the building permit.
okay. When we were in discussion, that was the mindset of the group, if I'm recalling, was the fee to apply for your permit. To get your permit, that was the fee. And so,
Do you have it in front of you? Could you read that, please?
I can read
Read it
it.
back to us.
and it could just be one of those things that we just have to fix,
Yeah, it's probably,
and that's no big deal.
there's a lot of late
Got
nights
it.
putting that together. It wouldn't surprise me if we missed
Yeah,
something.
it's no biggie. I just want to make sure that we reference that area. Fees and costs. No solar farm or community solar special use permit applications shall be accepted until filing the fee of $500 is paid. And the following, accompanied by a notarized statement of the appropriate corporate officials or a legal representative of the applicant that the applicant will pay to the county additional fees to reimburse the county for monies expended in excess of $500 in preparing for, processing, reviewing, evaluating the application to its final resolution. The applicant shall also agree in said notarized statement to stop all proceedings if an invoice for reimbursement to the county is not paid to the county treasurer within 10 days after the invoice has been presented to the appropriate corporate officer or official representative of the applicant. So there's just a lot of verbiage in that section that we just, I think, probably should clean up.
Okay, but what you're talking about primarily covers the application fee. There's a difference between an application fee and a building permit fee.
Yeah, when I was talking with him, is the intent was the whole process, the fee to apply for the permit for everything, not the building. So,
The application fee covers things like the zoning board of appeals hearing and the process by which the application is finally receives approval. At that point in time, the applicant can apply for a building permit, so it's a separate fee.
Bob, you have any input on it? I'm sure you do.
Well, traditionally, the way our system is set up, if somebody wants to rezone or do a conditional use or variance, they pay an application fee for that. And it's typically $400 to $500. It covers the cost of the per diems for the ZBA, Zoning Board of Appeals. It covers mailings to adjacent property owners. It pays for publications, legal notices in the paper. If those variances are approved or rezoning is approved, then obviously the intent of those is typically to build an improvement. And then once that improvement is decided on what they're going to build, we charge a separate building permit fee. And that fee is based on either cost of the project, or in the case of wind towers, it was based on a per tower basis, which was $5,000. And that's the way our current system is set up. Why would somebody pay us $6,000 to do an application that could get turned down? And our only cost is going to be between $500 and $600. If they get approved, then they were more than happy to pay the $5,000 or $6,000 or whatever you set to build the project. That's my thought process on that.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to have a permit fee. I do think it reads out the way we intended. As far as amount, I want to make sure, my opinion is to make sure we keep it fair. We don't want to chase any potential business away, because these are corporations that are willing to come in, build multi-million-dollar facilities, and get on our tax rolls. And ultimately, that helps the county, it helps school districts, and it helps everybody in the county, because we can use that to hopefully never increase tax rates, just the tax base. So my suggestion for the board is to go with a graduated system. What amount? I'd say probably up to $5,000 as far as energy production, but I don't know where the steps should be. I'm not sure how to do that, because we want to keep it fair for a company that wants to come in and build a half a megawatt facility versus a 6 megawatt facility. They should not have to pay the same permit fee. Bob?
Just another suggestion. I like the thought process of Grundy and Kankakee. Start with an initial fee up to a certain value amount and then increase it per thousand. That's what we do with our permit process with our residential and our commercial stuff now. We have a value set in a range up to a certain amount, and once they go over that, we charge them so many cents per thousand after that. It's easy to maintain, it's easy to explain, it's easy to understand, it's very easy to calculate. Whatever you set that base amount originally, that's where you could, and then do something per thousand, like $1 per thousand after that. I think that it'd be very reasonable and easy to calculate and go forward with. Because I don't know the variance in sizes, we haven't had many yet. So, like, these two projects are both right around 2 megawatt projects. I don't know if we're going to get any larger farms than that. So, but I don't know what the cost to construct those are. So that's...
Yeah. Any input? Charlie?
What is the range of acreage it covers?
The permitted, or the facilities that have applied, correct? Wasn't it, we discussed that the other day, Bob, is up to 120, I believe?
The Louis Cave tract is about 145 25 acres. Obviously, they're not going to use near that much. I think it's around 25 to 30 acres of that they're going to use. The other project up in Beaverville is about a 150-acre farm, but it's separated by the railroad track diagonally, and the site where they want to propose is between the county road and the railroad track, and it's like, I'd say anywhere from 15 to 20 acres is as much ground as they're going to use on that. So, but the actual sites that they're offering up are quite fairly large.
Okay. Any input on committee? I do like Bob's idea of going off of value. I think that is a much better way to evaluate this. Anybody have any input? Marvin?
The zoning, planning and zoning did look at Kankakee when we developed our original ordinance, and we used them as somewhat of a model. I would suggest that we continue to go that route and use them as a model, and maybe, I don't know, 5,000, 6,250, whatever they're doing, plus 1,000, but I would suggest that would be the way we proceed.
Yeah, I think it would be, I'd be comfortable, I feel, at 5,000 for 1 million of value and $1 for every 1,000 afterwards. I mean, I feel comfortable at that. I don't know what it costs to construct these, but I'm not sure what $1 million gets you. Probably not a lot. Any other input? Is there a motion to accept anything? We need a motion.
Bob, are you comfortable with the 5,000?
$10 per thousand after a million.
So 5,000 for the first million, and then $1 per 1,000 after
That's easy to do.
for the permit fee. So I motion to set the permit fee at $5,000 for the first million in value, and then $1 for every 1,000 after that.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Mr. Persley? Are there any questions or comments regarding the motion?
I got one. I think it's fair. I think it keeps us competitive. We
I
definitely
guess-
don't want to chase them away, so.
I guess the question that I have is who establishes the value? And how do you believe that?
You said that's easily calculable, Bob?
Well, I mean, obviously they're going to submit costs to us with their plan. If you question that cost, then obviously we're going to have to find experts to say that they're lying. So, I mean, that's basically what it's going to come down to. And you're going to have to find somebody within that industry that knows what it costs to construct one of those. So most large construction companies don't hide those. I mean, that's, I think we have more of an issue with, never mind, I won't go there.
Well, the other side of the coin is if you want to base it on the megawatt, output of the project. So I'm no expert to say which is better, but to me, when you're relying on the applicant to establish that value, you've got a lot of peril there that they're going to undervalue it. They're certainly not going to overvalue it. Mr. Persley.
Maybe these permits should, maybe these permits should go through the committee before they're awarded. Go through the zoning and planning committee before they're awarded.
Do they have the expertise to ascertain the true value of it?
Well, we can sure question it. But if a person comes into the planning and zoning office and is seeking a permit, who's going to handle it in that office to make sure that it's okay and it's up above privacy, or not privacy, but the real cost?
Well, in the case of the wind farms, those questions are answered during the application process. I don't know if they can be answered during the application process on a solar farm.
I don't see,
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't see why they couldn't. I don't see any negativity to that. That's more positive than negative.
Well, I'm not objecting to what you're saying. I just think it's something we need to address today before we make a final decision.
When I spoke with Kankakee did tell me that the facilities they've had approach them for permits would be roughly around the $12,000 mark in permit fees based on the estimates they were given for their value.
And did the construction people accept that fee?
Yes,
Then they did.
yes. And it does not, he said, they did explain too that it does not apply to personal property within the facility. Defined personal property, but
Thank you.
any further discussion? Motion and a second on the floor.
I guess if there is no further discussion on the matter, the clerk can call the roll.
Crow. Yes. Curtis. Hasbargen.
Yes.
Johnson. Crumweedy.
Yes.
Lemay.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Awful. Persley.
Yes.
Raymond.
Yes.
Shore.
Yes.
Sticknot.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Alt. Barons.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
15-1. Motion carried.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Policy and procedure. Your committee to whom was referred policy and procedure would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Administrative Center on August 2, 2018 at 9 a.m. Members present were Scher, Raymond, Barons, Bills, Sticknot, and McTaggart. Anderson and Crumweedy were absent. Also present, County Clerk Lisa Fancher, Supervisor of Assessments Bob Yergler, ICPHD Administrator D. Shippert, EMA Director Eric Stacey, and County Board Member Charlie Alt. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Marvin Sticknot and seconded by Russell Bills to approve the agenda. That motion carried by a voice vote. There were no public comments. The committee chairs gave their monthly reports. Highway Chairman Bills reported interviews are scheduled for maintenance workers at the Highway Department. Planning and Zoning Chairman Raymond reported the Planning and Zoning Committee will receive their monthly reports. Finance Vice Chairman McTaggart reported the Finance Committee held budget hearings last week. The Health Department and 911 will present their budgets during the regular Finance Committee meeting on August 9. A search committee meeting is being held today after policy and procedure to discuss the Finance Director position. An interview subcommittee will be formed to narrow down the search and begin interviewing candidates. Management Chairman Barons and the Management Committee will continue discussion on lighting efficiencies in the county buildings, snow removal, and the use of the county boardroom. The Judicial Committee will receive their monthly reports. Tax Chairman Sticknot reported his committee will receive monthly department head reports and begin preliminary work on the levy. EMA Director Eric Stacey reported he attended a long-term recovery committee meeting, a planning meeting for the fair, and also attended the Iroquois County Fair in July. Stacey hosted a hazard mitigation meeting and has been working on the training exercise plan. Lastly, Stacey said he is in possession of the donated vehicle. It is insured and being stored in the maintenance shed. The committee was provided with a draft of the EMA vehicle use policy. Stacey explained he used the county's current vehicle use policy and made revisions specific to EMA. Stacey is inquiring with the insurance company as to whether volunteers are covered under our policy. EMA currently has 11 volunteers, but Stacy said not all volunteers would be allowed access to the vehicle. County Board Chairman Scher asked Stacy to change the subject of the policy to read, use of Iroquois County Board-owned vehicles -EMA, due to this policy being specific to the EMA department. It was moved by Bills and seconded by Behrens to approve the EMA vehicle use policy with the noted changes. That motion carried by a voice vote. A memorandum of understanding between the Iroquois County Public Health Department and Iroquois County Emergency Management Agency was reviewed. Scher said the MOU applies to the EMA vehicle. State's Attorney Jim Devine feels the County Board should approve this memorandum going forward. Stacy stated he drafted the agreement to solidify the shared responsibilities between ICPHD and EMA. The agreement is meant to enable cooperative services, and any failure to complete obligations will not be punished. Should either party be unable to provide services, there will be no penalty. Stacy said the term of the MOU is in effect upon signature of both parties, and if either party wishes to terminate the agreement, they must do so in writing at least 60 days prior to the effective date. It was moved by Behrens and seconded by Raymond to approve the memorandum of understanding between Iroquois County Emergency Management Agency and Iroquois County Public Health Department. That motion carried by a voice vote. Scher presented a resolution regarding Second Amendment rights. Scher said this is an advisory referendum intended to further solidify our feelings about our Second Amendment rights and to allow Iroquois County residents to have their voice heard as well. The resolution presented to the committee included a question to voters as well as an alternate question. Scher told the committee if the resolution is approved, one or the other needs to be approved to be put before the voters. However, if someone wishes to affirm their Second Amendment rights, they have to vote no per the first question, and Scher would prefer a wording change to require them to vote yes. The questions are stated as follows. Should the Illinois General Assembly pass any additional legislation limiting a citizen's right to keep and bear arms as defined by the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution? Or, do you support the right to keep and bear arms as defined by the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution? Scher noted the approval needs to occur by the next board meeting in order to appear on the ballot in November. It was moved by Sticknoth and seconded by Raymond to revise the resolution submitted to the county board as follows. Should the Illinois General Assembly refrain from passing any additional legislation limiting a citizen's right to keep and bear arms as defined by the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution? That motion carried by a voice vote. Scher and State Representative Tom Bennett attended a Kankakee River Basin Commission meeting in North Judson, Indiana on July 11. Scher explained the organization was created by the Indiana State Legislature and has jurisdiction over the Kankakee River Basin in Indiana. The organization consists of about 20 people and involves 8 counties. The meeting was intended to discuss flood matters on the Iroquois and Kankakee Rivers in Indiana. Scher said the 8 counties in Indiana voted to approve a contract with Christopher Burke Engineering in Indianapolis to conduct a study of the Iroquois River. The cost for the study is $275,000, and these 8 counties in Indiana will be paying $225,000 of the cost. Scher believes Kankakee County Finance Committee has approved paying $25,000 towards the cost, which leaves a balance of $25,000. Scher said he has not presented this information to the board yet because he is unsure if the Iroquois River in Iroquois County is getting its fair share of the study, and the county doesn't have $25,000 available at this time to invest in something like this. However, Scher has been exploring other forms of financing. A copy of the study is available for review. Sure also attended a meeting in Forest, Illinois on July 12th. The meeting was an informative meeting based upon an alliance Mr. Bennett is forming for flood matters. General discussion was held on items that can be accomplished by having this alliance. Another meeting is scheduled for late August or early September, and all board members are invited to attend. The future of the Planning and Zoning Committee was discussed. Sure said board member Dan Persley expressed his concern about the committee not meeting for a few months and suggested the committee be disbanded or they need to begin holding their meetings on a regular basis again. Planning and Zoning Chairman Raymond told Sure he would like to see the Planning and Zoning Committee merged with the Tax Committee after the November election. Also, if there is no business to discuss, he doesn't see a need to hold a meeting because the estimated cost savings to the county is $300. I believe that should be closer to $3,000. Sure said he spoke to Devine and the committee can become inactive but cannot be abolished because it is a standing committee and is in the county code book. Sure also said he doesn't think planning and zoning should be disbanded because it fulfills important functions, but he is in favor of combining the committee with another committee such as the tax committee. However, some of the duties that report to the tax committee could also report to another committee. For example, animal control can report to the health committee instead of the tax committee. Yergler told the committee this year's activity for planning and zoning has been highly unusual. Yergler said he agrees with Raymond about not holding any unnecessary meetings, as it definitely is a cost savings to the county. Planning and zoning does serve a purpose, but it doesn't matter which committee the information is reported to. Raymond stated there are oftentimes issues Raymond stated there are oftentimes issues are brought to the committee that do not pertain to planning and zoning, and this will no longer be permitted. Yergler suggested the committee review the nuisance ordinance due to an issue west of Route 24. Sticknall stated he is not in favor of the changes mentioned. He believes combining the two committees will be a burden unless animal control is moved to the health committee. Sure said the decision will be finalized during the November Policy and Procedure Committee meeting. Yergler reminded Sure of Wayne Wagner's 5-year reappointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Correspondence was distributed to the committee. The committee reviewed the claims. It was moved by Raymond and seconded by Bills to pay the claims subject to county board approval. A roll call vote was taken. That motion carried. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Raymond and seconded by Bills to adjourn at 10 a.m. That motion carried by a voice vote, all of which is respectfully submitted and signed by all members present, and I move for its adoption. Is there a second? Mr. Barron seconds. Are there any questions or comments on the report? Mrs. Crowe.
I listened to the meeting, and it seems to me like there was a lot more information in that meeting than what's in the minutes about the $25,000. And the way this is presented in the minutes doesn't give the accurate picture of what was discussed in the meeting. And I'm specifically referring to the fact that where it says you've been exploring other forms of financing, which is extremely vague, because what was said in the meeting is there's an anonymous source that may take that money. It spoke of $50,000 in the capital line that the county has. None of this appears here. And to approve this today, as it's here, and as it was discussed in the meeting, is to approve something that may come down the road that we know nothing about, an anonymous source making a donation, and that is not comfortable at all, because last month, or in the last 60 days, we approved the donation of a vehicle, and now we're to rubber stamp, okay, a donation by an anonymous source. That's wrong, and there is
Point of
no
order, Mr. Chairman.
transparency there.
The motion for the $25,000 from the contingency line is listed under the Finance Committee section, not under Policy and Procedure, so I believe Ms. Crow's comments should be saved for that time when that report gives more detail, and that is where we actually will decide on whether we should follow through with your request.
I stand corrected, and you're absolutely correct. It was in finance, Chad.
Are there any other questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Curtis. Yes. Hasbargen. Yes. Johnson. No. Crumweedy.
Yes.
Lemay.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Awful.
Yes.
Persley.
Yes.
Shore.
Yes.
Sticknot.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Alt.
Yes.
Barons.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Crow.
No.
2 noes. 13-2, motion carried.
Okay, Management Committee, Mr. Behrens.
Mr. Chairman and members of the County Board, your committee to whom was referred Management Services would beg leave to submit the following report on matters before them. Your committee met at the Administrative Center on August 6, 2018 at 9 a.m. Members present were Behrens, Alt, Hasbargen, Johnson, Awful. Kevin Bowman and Chad McGinnis were absent. Also present, County Board Chairman John Schur, Maintenance Supervisor Chris Drake, Dave Kluskins with SmartWatt, County Board candidate Paula Rosso, and Wendy Davis with the Times Republic. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Barb Awful, seconded by Larry Hasbargen to approve the agenda. The motion carried by a voice vote. There were no public comments. There were no updates on the county farm. Dave Kluskins with SmartWatt informed the committee their engineers were at the county building last week to begin the lighting audits and survey some of the equipment. SmartWatt will keep in contact with Maintenance Supervisor Chris Drake on their progress. Maintenance Chairman Behrens discussed solar opportunities. Behrens asked McCluskins if Ori Cummings with SmartWatt was able to compile additional names and contact information for other solar companies. Mr. Kluskins said he would touch base with Cummings and report back to the committee. Behrens said the solar company that has already contacted us is still interested, but the project has to be put out for bid. The committee discussed snow removal. Drake said discussions were held about bidding out snow removal only. The county has an operable salt spreader that can be hooked up to the maintenance truck. Drake received pallet prices for salt at an average of $2.50 per pallet. Each pallet includes 63 bags of salt. Sherry Johnson suggested adding a salt spreading option on the bid packet for the times when Drake is not available. The bid would be per occurrence rather than per pound. It was moved by Alt and seconded by Awful to request bids for snow removal, including the provision of salt spreading per occurrence. A roll call vote was taken, motion carried. Behrens gave an update on office space, stating the Veterans Office has been moved to the previous Animal Control Office and the County Board's Chairman Office has been relocated to the previous Veterans Office. Alt provided the committee with an email from Garavante Lift. The email includes a proposal and concept drawings for the elevator. The proposal of $74,900 does not include the support wall. A separate contractor will need to be contacted for that quote. The committee discussed the purpose of the elevator and how it will provide easier access to the upstairs area of the administrative center. The committee will also look into other elevator companies for quotes. The county board meeting room policy was reviewed. Revisions were made as follows. The meeting room will be left in the same condition as it was found. A $75 deposit is required, and any additional charges that may be incurred. The organization will be billed and expected to pay for any damages costing more than the $75 deposit. Alcoholic beverages are not permitted on the premises. The policy will go into effect October 1, 2018. It was moved by Hasbargen and seconded by Awful to approve the Iroquois County meeting room use and administrative building access policy with changes noted. Motion carried by a voice vote. Maintenance Supervisor Chris Drake reported on the following. SmartWatt completed their walkthrough of the county building in July. They also placed data loggers around the offices to count the hours certain items are lit or run throughout the day. The values on the steel fixtures in the jail have been discontinued. The valves on the steel fixtures. Rebuild kits are available, but there are still issues with water leaks. A representative is meeting with Drake to offer possibilities when the valves go bad or when the leaks occur. Also, SmartWatt is going to prepare a proposal for upgrading the toilet and sink fixtures to electronic valves. Fire alarms were recertified and tested. The heat pump at USDA required maintenance. There are some parking lot lights at the courthouse that need replaced. Drake reported he has 60% remaining of his budget for the jail and courthouse and 61% remaining for the administrative center. Drake said he has approximately $7,000 remaining in the capital improvement fund. This amount will be used to pay for the curbing work that needs completed to upgrade the ADA parking spots. Only one heat pump has been replaced this year. The only capital improvements expensed for 2019 are heat pumps at $20,000. The chiller should be included in the 2020 budget, and the courthouse roof needs replaced within the next couple of years. The committee reviewed the claims. It was moved by Hasbargen, second by Johnson, to pay the claims, subject to county board approval. A roll call vote was taken. Motion carried. During old business, Behrens reminded the committee about the expiration of the AT&T long-distance contract. The negotiations process will be handled by County Board Chairman John Schur and Executive Assistant Amanda Longfellow. During new business, the committee discussed changing September meeting date. It was agreed to hold the September Management Committee meeting on Wednesday, September 5 at 1 p.m. It was moved by Alt, second by Awful to adjourn at 9:50 a.m. Motion carried by a voice vote, all of which is respectfully submitted, and I move for its adoption.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the management report. Is there a second? Mr. Alt, second. Are there any questions or comments on the report? Mr. Persley?
Has there been any, has there been any observation of the entrance to the jailhouse, that top step that's covered with a steel plate? Is all rusty and about ready to fall off? Is there any?
At the jail?
At the jail, at the entrance, the top step, just before you...
I don't go into the jail, Sheriff.
There's a water issue there that when we get rain, especially out of the south and southwest, water accumulates there, and we've got a squeegee that we push it off with.
I saw that.
That is, Chris Drake is aware of it, and
Is it aware of that rusty area?
Yes.
It looks like it's developing into a trip hazard, actually.
Yeah, no, we've walked around the buildings and he's aware of that, so that's gonna be taken care of. We're just not wanting to put new steel down, knowing that we want to deal with the water issue first, the cooling there. So, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Hasbargen. Johnson. Crumweedy. Lemay. McGinnis. Awful. Persley. Schur.
Yes.
Sticknot. Whitlow.
Yes.
Alt. Behrens.
Yes.
Bills. Crow. Curtis. 15-0, motion carried.
That motion's approved 15-0. Judicial and Public Safety, Mr. Behrens.
Mr. Chairman and members of the County Board, your committee to whom was referred Judicial and Public Safety would beg leave to submit the following report on matters before them. Your committee met at the courthouse on August 8, 2018 at 3 p.m. Members present were Behrens, Crow, Curtis, Lemay, Awful, and Whitlow. Chad McGinnis was absent. Also present, Sheriff Derek Hagan, Probation Supervisor Barb King, State's Attorney Jim Devine, Circuit Clerk Lisa Hines, 911 Director Eric Raymond, County Board Chairman John Schur, County Board Candidate Roger Bard. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Ernie Curtis and seconded by Jed Whitlow to approve the agenda. Motion carried by a voice vote. There were no public comments. Sheriff Derek Hagan's monthly report for July included patrol had 896 calls for service for the month of July. Year-to-date calls for service 5,077. 2017 year-to-date 3,558, 40% increase. Booked in 75 prisoners for the month of July. Year-to-date booked in 413. Average daily population July 27. Year-to-date average population 23. Year-to-date average length of stay 16 days. Overtime in the jail for July was 276 hours on the schedule. Part-time hours 0. One deputy off on workman's compensation. Hagan submitted 2 additional claims for the committee for payment for a prisoner transport for a conference. Hagan reported burglaries have increased and domestic situations have remained steady. Lastly, Hagan informed the committee he requested $235,000 for the Sheriff's Capital Improvement Fund during budget hearings. These funds will be used for the purchase of 3 new squad cars, 10 new computers, 16 new portable radios, and new fingerprint machine. Hagan stressed these are all items that are desperately needed. The fingerprint machine needs replaced because he can no longer get a maintenance agreement on it due to the age of the machine. The computers are 10 years old and the portable radios are 12 years old. Hagan said he came to this proposal amount due to there being no major projects for maintenance department in 2019. Probation Supervisor Barb King reviewed the probation and court services activity report for July with the committee. State's Attorney Jim Deviden reported computers for his department were purchased from his automation fund. Circuit Clerk Lisa Hines distributed her monthly report to the committee for their review. A total of $54,180.73 was received in fines and fees, and $5,744.06 was received from credit collection partners. The vacancy in Hines' office has been filled. Lastly, Hines has an employee retiring in February 2019. Hines plans to hire a replacement in October to allow an ample amount of training before the retirement occurs. 911 Director Eric Raymond distributed the ETSB report for July. Raymond reported the vacancy in his department has been filled and expects the new hire to be able to work independently by September. The committee reviewed claims. It was moved by Barb Offal, second by Vince Lemie, to pay the judicial public safety claims, including the additional claims submitted by Sheriff Derek Hagan, subject to County Board approval. The roll call vote was taken. Motion carried. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Jed Whitlow and seconded by Offal to adjourn the meeting at 3:33 p.m. Motion carried by a voice vote, all of which is respectfully submitted, and I move for its adoption.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the judicial report. Is there a second? Mrs. Offal, are there any questions or comments regarding this report? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Johnson. Crumweedy. Lemie. McGinnis. Awful. Persley. Shure.
Yes.
Sticknot. Whitlow. Alt. Barons. Bills. Crow. Curtis. Hasbargen. 15-0, motion carried.
That motion 15-0. Before we hear from the search committee, I believe we need to back up a little bit. And on the matter of the resolution to appear on the ballot in November, we need a separate motion for that. Everybody has a copy of this. It was outlined in the policy and procedure report. But I believe we need a separate motion to approve this resolution, so it entertains such at this time.
Second.
Did you get that?
Did you get that?
Any questions or comments on this?
I just want to say thank you for fixing the wording that was presented. I appreciate it.
Okay, do we need to call the roll on that?
Yeah.
We'll call the roll, please.
Crumweedy.
Yes.
Lemie.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Awful. Persley. Shure.
Yes.
Sticknot.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Alt.
Yes.
Barons. Oops.
He left.
Bills.
Yes.
Crow. Curtis. Hasbargen. Johnson. Motion carried 14-0.
That motion is approved 14-0. Mr. Bills, Search Committee.
Mr. Chairman, members of the County Board, your committee whom referred search would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Administration Center on August. Your committee met at the Administration Center. Is that okay, Dan? Try that, Dan. Can you hear? Dan, can you hear? Okay. Thank you. Your committee met at the Administration Center on August the 2nd, 2018 at 10:07 a.m. Members present was McTaggart, Bills, Alt, Raymond, Anderson, Crow, Crumwitty, and Crumwitty was absent. Also present, County Board Chairman John Schur, County Clerk Lisa Fancher, and County Board Member Marvin Sticknock. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Bills, second by Raymond, to approve the agenda. Motion carried by a voice vote. Search Chairman Michael McTaggart stated the committee is meeting today to discuss the replacement of Finance Director position that has been vacant since late April. It was moved by Dan Raymond and seconded by Charles Alt to enter into executive session at 10:10 a.m. under 5 ILCS 12-120/2C, the appointment and employment of compensation of public employees. Motion carried by voice vote. It was moved by Dan Raymond and seconded by Charles Alt to come out of executive session at 10:42 a.m. That motion carried by voice vote. It was moved by Dan Raymond and seconded by Charles Alt to proceed with contacting 5 candidates for the Finance Director position, as discussed during executive session. A roll call vote was taken. That motion carried. The committee discussed forming an interview subcommittee to interview the candidates. The subcommittee will be responsible for contacting the candidates and arranging dates and times for their interviews. County Board Chairman John Schur noted this is a very serious matter, and he wants to be sure the individuals conducting the interview can commit to the dates and times scheduled. It was moved by Bills and seconded by Raymond to form an interview subcommittee consisted of Michael McTaggart, Dan Raymond, and Charles Alt. A roll call vote was taken. That motion carried. McTaggart said he will contact the candidates and schedule the interviews. As there was no further business to become before the committee, it was moved by Raymond and seconded by Bills to adjourn at 11 a.m. Motion carried by voice vote, all of which is respectfully submitted and signed by the ones present today. And I would move for the adoption of this report.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the search committee report. Is there a second? Mrs. Awful. Are there any questions or comments on the report?
Mr. Chairman, I have one. What are the dates for the interviews?
Those, I think, are set in another committee. I don't know if they have been set for the interviews yet. That was, the chairman's working on that, I know. Mr. McTaggart, who's not here. John, did you get an update from him?
No, I don't have an update.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to get all the parties involved coordinated and together on a time that everybody can make.
Right. You got the candidates, because some of them are actively employed, blah, 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 and we don't want to go there with it right now. And so checking their schedules and committee schedules, and they're going to try to bring it all together so they can get interviews.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Alt?
Not really a question, but I was on the subcommittee and I got a telephone message from Taggart that we might have an interview session.
Yeah, your mic on, Charlie? Is your mic on?
Can you hear me now better? No? Can you hear me better now?
Pull it closer.
I had a telephone message left to me yesterday. I didn't have a chance to return it, but we may have interviews tomorrow morning early of 2 candidates. I think we had chosen 4 before, and the message stated that only 2 of them would be in the interview because the other 2 had committed themselves to other employment since our meeting. I'm not sure about the meeting tomorrow morning. I haven't heard if Dan Raymond was going to be available or whether it was still scheduled. I can't tell you. I don't know.
Any other questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Lemay.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Awful. Persley.
Yes.
Shore.
Yes.
Sticknot.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Alt.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Crow. Curtis. Hasbargen. Johnson. Crumweedy.
Yes.
Motion carried 14
That
14
motion
0.
carried 14-0. Next up is Finance Committee, Mr. Bills.
And by default, I'm out here doing more reports. Let's see, we'll start with our budget hearings, which should have the first 23rd, first one you got there, John? Mr. Chairman, members of the County Board, your committee whom referred Finance would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Administration Center on July the 23rd, 2018 at 9 a.m. Members present was Michael McTaggart, Charles Alt, Russell Bills, Ernie Curtis, Sherry Johnson, and Dan Raymond. Kyle Anderson was absent. Also present, County Board Chairman John Schur, Sheriff Derek Hagan, Maintenance Supervisor Chris Drake, Public Defender Dale Stroud, County Engineer Joel Moore, Probation Director Tom Lathan, Coroner Bill Chittum, 9/11 Director Eric Raymond, and County Board Member Marvin Sticknot. The meeting was called to order. The committee reviewed Judge James Kinzer's budget. A salary increase for the Chief Deputy was requested. Michael McTaggart noted the increase in the library line item. Sheriff Derek Hagan presented his budget to the committee, stating an overall 3.5% increase in the Sheriff's General Fund. The administration assistant position used to consist of 2 full-time employees until 2007. In an effort to save money, the assistant 911 coordinator began assisting with those duties in 2007 until the last year. The sheriff office reimbursed 9/11 $10,000 for the hours worked each week. Hagan said there's only one administration assistant at this time, and she will be retiring next year. Hagan said he would like to replace the position with 2 full-time administration assistants. Hagan increased the gas and oil budget from $40,000 to $52,000. This, he explained, this figure is based off on a 5-year average. Service contracts remain the same at $25,500. Hagan said they are currently over budget due to an unexpected cost in snow plowing and salt. There may be a possibility for our maintenance supervisor spreading salt for the coming year. There are no increases in the household supplies or maintenance and repairs. Hagan said he spoke with maintenance supervisor Chris Drake, and there are also no upcoming projects for capital repairs at the courthouse or jail. The FOP salaries are set by their contracts. Hagan told the committee he replaced the management committee's long-term capital improvement plan with Drake, and there are no items scheduled for 2019. Also, the replacement cost of the chiller for the courthouse is not what was originally expected, and we should wait for the energy efficiency company to complete their audit. The north parking lot for the courthouse is scheduled for resurfacing in 2021. Sherry Johnson discussed the diet of prisoners line item and asked if other companies have been used in the past. Hagan answered requests for proposals are sent out, and typically Airmark is the lowest bidder, and sometimes the only bidder. The courthouse security fees consist of fees that are collected when individuals are able to pay them. Higgins noted he did not budget any capital improvements for the court security. The metal detector was updated 4 years ago. The X-ray machine is the original machine from 1998, but still passes the inspection test every year. Charles Ault asked Hagan if bulletproof vests or bulletproof glass was still being considered for the courthouse. Hagan said he hasn't been any more discussion, and it's not a priority at this time. A 2% increase was requested for the maintenance supervisor and for the courthouse security. The housekeeping position will receive a 2.5% increase per the ASME contract. Capital improvements for the Sheriff's Department include replacing 3 vehicles. The state bid for a Tahoe is $37,000. Hagan said purchasing the Tahoes would allow the deputies to access an area they often can't reach by a regular squad car. The Tahoes also have a higher resale value than the Impalas that they are currently driving. Installing the equipment into the new vehicles is estimated to be about $30,000. 3 mobile radios for the new vehicles are estimated to be about at $6,000. The state bid for mobile data computers is $52,000 or $5,200 each. There are 10 that need to be replaced. Hagan also received a bid for 16 portable radios in the amount of $12,800. The replacement of the LiveScan fingerprint machine is $25,000. Lastly, there are bulletproof vests due for replacement in 2019. Hagan says he has not included this amount in the budget because he plans to use book-in fees and grant monies to cover the costs. The bulletproof vests are warranted for 5 years and a cost of $800 per vest. A total of 13 vests will be purchased. Maintenance Supervisor Chris Drake reviewed his budget with the committee. Drake explained the substantial increase in the service contracts between 2018 and 2017 was due to the snow removal. If other arrangements can be made for 2019 for snow removal, the 2018 budget amount of $23,500 can remain the same for 2019. The Management Committee has discussed changing the snowplow agreement and not include salt application. Drake would be responsible for applying the salt for both locations. Drake said he is waiting for quotes for all the costs on salt. County already owns the equipment needed to spread the salt. It was discussed at the budget for telephone, electricity, water, gas should be handled through the Management Committee. No changes were requested in the maintenance and repairs. A $1,000 increase was requested for household supplies for the administration center. Drake informed the committee that the smartwatch will begin their energy audit this week, and the chiller at the courthouse may or may not be included in their project. The original plan was to replace the chiller in 2020 with an estimated cost of $325,000. Drake said the project to plan for the next couple of years is the roof on the courthouse. Langlois performed their annual inspections and has been repairing patches on the roof each time they are here. Langlois is hesitant to provide Drake with a quote for the roof because there are many variables involved, such as age of the roof. McTaggart asked Drake if he got estimates for the roof. Having a rough estimate will allow the county to plan for the project in the coming years. Lastly, one heat pump has been replaced this year. Heat pumps will also be reviewed by SmartWatch during their energy audit. For the 2019 budget, amounts could possibly be decreased for the heat pumps based upon their findings. The committee agreed to leave the 2019 capital improvement budget at the $20,000 for heat pumps. Public Defender Dale Stroud presented his budget to the committee. Mr. Stroud requested a $4,000 salary increase for himself and a $2,000 increase for his assistant public defender. A $1,000 increase was requested for a special attorney hire. Mr. Stroud also requested the county board consider offering group health insurance to the public defender staff. The committee reviewed the state's attorney's Jim Devine's budget. An increase of $1,750 was requested for both the assistant state's attorney, and a 2.5% increase was budgeted for both the chief deputy through the ASME contract. It was moved by Ernie Curtis and seconded by Charles Ault to recess the meeting at 10:20 a.m. That motion carried by vote. It was moved by Johnson and seconded by Dan Raymond to reconvene at 10:35 a.m. That motion carried by a voice vote. McTaggart requested the capital improvement sheet from Drake include the amount of the heat pumps and the chiller at the courthouse. A revised spreadsheet will be distributed. County Engineer Joel Moore presented his budget to the committee. Insurance reimbursement increases due to the maintenance staff. Moore said he is in the process of hiring and is unsure of what coverage the employees will enroll in. Moore requested a 2.5% increase in the assistant department head, and the remaining salaries are based on the ASME contract. Group insurance increases to accommodate the new hirees. Moore said the current year's line item is expected to be over budget due to employees enrolling into the group health program. Moore increased the budget for the gas and oil due to prices continuing to rise. A 1.5 salary increase is requested for Moore based off the previous years for county engineers. Motor fuel tax salaries are based upon the ASME contract. Not sure what that said. Probation Director Tom Lathan presented his budget to the committee. Lathan noted a salary change for the probation department head from $69,673 to $69,223. A 5-year contract has been agreed upon in the probation department. Included in the agreement is a 2.5 salary increase for the 2018 and a 2.5 salary increase for 2019. Lathan increased juvenile boarding, stated this is a uncontrollable cost. The probation services fees will be used to purchase computers in 2019. Coroner Bill Chittum presented his budget to the committee. No salary increases were requested. Chittum explained he was unsure of what to enter into the automation fund and the grant fund. He doesn't have plans to use these monies for either fund. Chittum said the automation fund receives $50 for every cremation permit issued. The grant fund receives monies from the state each year. Chittum plans to use the funds to purchase a new van when necessary. Mike McTaggart suggested amounts similar to the 2018 be entered for the 2019 budget year for the automation and the grants. McTaggart and the committee discussed the finance and IT budget. Most line items will remain about the same as 18 until further information is received. IT Chairman Troy Crumwitty and area-wide will be in contact for further information on the IT budget. Johnson questioned the outsourcing of the IT services and whether the services are ever bid out to other companies. Currently, the county pays area-wide on a time and material basis. Lastly, salaries for the executive assistant, Amanda Longfellow, and deputy clerk, Jill Johnson, will be discussed under closed session during the August 9th Finance Committee meeting. Mike McTaggart informed the committee interviews will be held soon for a finance director position. Johnson also reminded the committee that the Public Health Department, Dee Shippert, offered to assist in paying for an elevator installation at the Administration Center. This matter will be further discussed with the Management Committee and should also be added to the capital fund, the Capital Improvement Fund. The committee reviewed the Iroquois Kankakee Regional Office of Education budget. The budget amount for Iroquois County is $80,447. As there's no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Alton, seconded by Bills, to adjourn at 11:40 a.m. That motion carried by a voice vote, and all of which is respectfully submitted, and I think we'll just go ahead and give this other one. If somebody wants the questionnaire, we'll try to get them all at once. Sound good? Second report. Mr. Chairman, members of the County Board, your committee whom referred finance would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Administration Center on July the 25th, 2018 at 9:05 a.m. Members present was McTaggart, Bills, Curtis, Johnson, Kyle Anderson, Charles Alt, Dan Raymond was absent. Also present, County Board Chairman John Schur, Supervisor Assessments Bob Yergler, County Clerk Lisa Fancher, EMA Director Eric Cece, Animal Control Director Dr. Youssef, Superintendent of Veterans Assistance Jennifer Ingram, and the County Board Chairman or County Board Member Marvin Sticknell. The meeting was called to order. The committee reviewed the Treasurer Mindy Kuntz-Hagen's budget. A salary increase for the Chief Deputy was requested, and the Deputy Clerk will receive a 2.5% increase per the ASME contract. Executive Assistant Amanda Longfellow discussed the postage expense, stating that County Clerk Lisa Fancher has a voter registration purge every odd year. Due to this purge, Fancher and Longfellow took an average over years to come up with the amount budgeted for the 2019 budget. Supervisor Assessments Bob Yergler presented his budget to the committee. Yergler requested a $1,750 increase for himself with a $1,000 increase for the Chief Deputy. The rest of the staff will receive the 2.5% increase as per the ASME contract. Publications were decreased from the 15,800 to 7,500. Yergler explained he will finish paying for the GIS project, and the only fee being paid out now is the monthly fee of $500 a month. The only major increase in zoning and planning is mileage and travel. County Clerk Lisa Fancher presented her budget to the committee. Fancher requested a $1,000 increase for both her chief deputies. A $25 increase was requested for the election judges. Fancher said it's been more than 10 years since they have received an increase. They currently receive a $100 base pay plus additional $20 if they attend classes and $20 if they attend the class and $15 for attending classes. Fancher discussed the election equipment and the need to replace the equipment at some point. The devices are 14 years old and are no longer made. A vendor was on site to present their equipment. The cost to replace the devices plus any additional equipment is approximately $350,000. The transfer of the general fund, a transfer to the general fund from the automation fund is negotiable and can also be used to offset the cost of the election judge salaries increase. EMA Director Eric Cece presented his budget to the committee. Cece reminded the committee a majority of the expense are covered by the Emergency Management Performance Grant and the Hazardous Materials Emergency Preparedness Grant. CC stated that requested a $1,500 salary increase, a significant increase in the office expense from $600 to $3,385 is to provide accommodated printer and plotter supplies. CC also to provide supplies for his 11 volunteers such as shirts, badges, and name tags. Management and travel was decreased and the maintenance of the autos has increased due to a donation of a vehicle. Service contracts include a Starcom 21 radio subscription, area-wide, and the commodity flow study. The committee reviewed Circuit Clerk's Lisa Hines' budget. Salary increases were noted at 3% for the chief deputy, 2.5% for the deputy clerks. A $25,000 transfer to the general fund is budgeted from the court document storage and the circuit clerk's automation. The committee reviewed the Iroquois-Kankakee Regional Office of Education's budget. Mike McTaggart noted that their budget for Iroquois County is $80,447. Animal Control Director Dr. Youssef presented his budget to the committee. There was no salary increases requested. Mileage and travel and service contracts increased due to the increase in the calls. Dr. Youssef informed the committee of recent changes regarding samples being sent to the lab for rabies testing. He stated that the health department used to pay for these charges, but he was informed that they no longer cover these charges. The committee discussed the 2019 revenue numbers. McTaggart suggested the committee ask Sheriff Derek Hagan for other options in regards to the squad car replacements. Superintendent of Veterans Assistance Jennifer Ingram presented her budget to the committee. An 8% increase overall is requested. Ingram requested $2,000 salary increase. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Sherry Johnson and seconded by Russell Bills to adjourn at 10:37 a.m. That motion carried by a voice vote, which is respectfully submitted. And then we had a Finance Committee normal report. Mr. Chairman, members of the County Board, your committee, whom refer Finance, would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Iroquois County at the Administration Center on August 9, 2018 at 9 a.m. Members present was Kyle Anderson, Charles Alt, Russell Bills, Ernie Curtis, Sherry Johnson. Michael McTaggart and Dan Raymond were absent. Also present, County Board Chairman John Schur, County Engineer Joel Moore, Sheriff Derek Hagan, County Clerk Lisa Fancher, Treasurer Mindy Kuntz-Hagen, Probation Director Tom Lathan, Public Health Administrator Dee Shepard, Supervisor Assessments Bob Yergler, 911 Director Eric Raymond, Susie Warner with Homestar Insurance, Greg Steffen with insurance company Compass Insurance, Compass Insurance, and Wendy Davis of the Times-Republic. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Charles Alt and seconded by Russell Bills to approve the agenda. Motion carried by a voice vote. There was no public comment. Greg Steffen of Compass Insurance reported the risk management met with the county engineer Joel Moore and the county highway department and was able to get them logged into the company's portal for safety training videos. They are continuing to schedule times with the sheriff's department. Also, there was a squad car deer incident that has been processed. Susie Warner with Homestar Insurance reported once she receives the signed renewal documents and renewals will be finalized for December. Ms. Warner will touch base with Executive Assistant Amanda Longfellow regarding this for the scheduling of the annual benefits fair. Lastly, Ms. Warner said she will begin working on the renewals for the retirees that are on the Medicare Advantage plan. The department heads gave their monthly reports. They are as follows. 911 Director Eric Raymond reported the vacancy in his department was filled 7/3 of 18, and he expects the new hire to work independently by September. Public Health Director Dee Shepard reported that Board of Health met last night and had approved her 2019 budget. Sherry Johnson questioned how shipments are handled for the Health Department and Animal Control. Johnson said the Animal Control Director, Dr. Youssef, had mentioned that the Health Department is no longer covering the cost of shipping bat samples, and the cost will have to come from his budget. Shepard said the Health Department has pre-addressed labels from the state that are used for these samples. She will speak with Dr. Youssef concerning the matter. County Clerk Lisa Fancher reported she requested an increase in pay for the election judges during the budget hearings. They currently receive $100 base pay plus $20 if they attend class, plus additional $15 when they attend class, whether or not they work. The increase was discussed with the tax committee, and they are supportive of the increase. Fancher said she would like the increase to be effective for the November election. The salary increase would result in an overall estimation increase of about $4,000 per election. Fancher prepared a resolution to be reviewed by the committee and approved by the county board Tuesday. Sheriff Derek Hagan asked the committee to consider the items he had budgeted for the capital improvement during his budget hearing. Hagan said calls for services are 40% higher than they were a year ago, and his staff has done a great job doing more with less. Hagan budgeted $235,000 to replace outdated equipment such as portable radios, mobile data computers. He also requested 3 squad cars and a new fingerprint machine. Hagan said that the current fingerprint machine is no longer supported by the manufacturer for maintenance agreements. These items are selected because these items were selected because the management committee did not have any large projects for their 2019 on their long-term outlook. Hagan noted that the chiller at the courthouse is scheduled for 2020 and the roof will need replaced within the next couple years. If the county board agrees to hire personnel with the public safety funds, the equipment will still be needed. At this time, Hagan said he is not asking for personnel and hopes that the county board will strongly consider his request. Also, Hagan said he continues to look for grants to cover the cost of these upgrades. Discussion on the review of the financial policies will begin next month. County Board Chairman John Schur informed the committee that he has attended a Kankakee River Basin meeting on July the 11th. During the meeting, a motion was made to fund the $225,000 project, for them to fund $225,000 out of the $275,000 proposal from the Chris Burke Engineering to conduct a study on the entire Kankakee, Yellow, and Iroquois River basins. The remains of $50,000 is to come from the Kankakee County and Iroquois County, but neither county has committed. Schur said he found a source of possibility to cover the portion, but in the meantime, he would like to see the $25,000 from the contingent line of the budget used only if the source is not able to fund their portion. Johnson asked if more information about the source. Schur is referring to it, but Schur stated he preferred to remain anonymous at this time. It was moved by Bills and seconded by Alt to approve taking $25,000 from the contingency line of the general fund in order to for the study to proceed and only to be used if other sources is not available to cover the portion. A roll call vote was taken. Alt aye, Bills aye, Curtis aye, Johnson nay, Anderson A. Motion carried. Lastly, Schur told the committee a copy of the proposal from Chris Burke Engineering is available in the county board office. Chipper presented her 2019 budget to the committee, stating it was approved by the Board of Health last night by a 5-to-1 vote. The Health Department will continue to transfer $10,000 to the county's IT fund. A new line item entitled Other will be used toward contributing $5,000 toward the county's utilities, $5,000 toward the county's maintenance fund. Shepard said she will make sure that the tax committee's meeting, Shepard said she would make a request to the tax committee meeting to leave their levy at $316,000, which is 53.6% of their max tax levy. Chipper noted she has presented a deficit budget, which means they will be spending out of their cash balance. Employees are receiving a 2.5% increase. Raymond presented his 2019 budget. Raymond said ESTB chose to table their budget conversation for the upcoming meeting. A majority of the budget presented is salary related, and Raymond said he's tried not to make any changes. Raymond said the revenues have not been calculated due to the lack of not having a finance director and not knowing the formulas to know the revenues that are calculated. Raymond spoke with Carl Pound with the Illinois State Police regarding what ETSB can contribute. In years past, the formula was based off the amount 911 volume versus the non-emergency calls. That formula was 34% last year. This year, the phone volume is at 19%. Based off of that percentage, Raymond has requested ETSB to continue $150,000 to the general fund. The committee discussed the need to set a special finance meeting to review the revenue numbers. A meeting is scheduled for Thursday, August the 26th at 9 a.m. The committee reviewed the claims. It was moved by Ernie Curtis and seconded by Alt to pay the claims subject to county board approval. A roll call vote was taken. That motion carried. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Bills and seconded by Curtis to adjourn at 10:09 a.m. That motion carried by a voice vote, all of which is respectfully submitted, and these are all signed by all present. And I would move for the adoption of all three of these reports.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the Finance Committee reports. Is there a second? Mr. Alt, are there any questions or comments on the reports?
Dan.
Mr. Persley?
When it comes time to purchase the bulletproof vests, I would make a suggestion that maybe whoever purchases them, look into the possibility of purchasing retired military bulletproof vests. And I'm pretty sure they're available.
That could be a good possibility, Dan, but you know what? I would refer that to the sheriff on that. One thing about that type of product, I don't know, old military stuff, it's all about how old it is, because it's all about a company saying it's guaranteed for so long, and I'm sure even by his contract he cannot be using any maybe second-rate type of material. But again, Derek, do you want to comment on it?
Yeah, all of that armor has soft body armor has a shelf life. So, I mean, we couldn't purchase them and issue them out, because if we do that, I'm going to have 12 grievances.
Well, I thought maybe they would come with specs and all that kind of goofy stuff too. And I'm aware of the best for your guy.
Well, it's not so much the best as it is what the manufacturer will warranty. So we can't give them outdated vests, regardless of if they're top of the line or not top of the line. We just can't issue outdated soft body armor.
Okay, thanks.
I'm afraid it's not like your box of cornflakes when there's a date on it, says if you use it a day later, you know, you might croak, but you got to go by that date. Yeah.
Are there any other questions or comments about the report? Mr. Hasbargen?
What happens to that material when it deteriorates?
What's the best? Oh, I don't know.
It deteriorates somehow. It's not only good for 5 years, huh?
Well, I think it's just a matter of the wear and tear. They're using them, you know, basically 40 hours out of the week. They're exposed to heat and cold and all other things. So that's just a standard that that industry came up with, that they're comfortable guaranteeing that they'll do the function they were made for, which is stop the intrusion of a bullet into the body for 5 years. After that, they're not willing to make that guarantee.
Mr. Whitlow?
I actually asked them at O'Haron's one time when I was purchasing some vests, and they told me after 5 years, the fibers actually break down internally.
Fine, I think we've answered that question pretty carefully now. Right. Mrs. Crowe, did you have something?
To return return to the issue under this report of the $25,000 anonymous donation, do you have anything to add to that at this time, Mr. Chairman?
I can tell you that I'm very optimistic that those monies will be approved for the county to use. I wouldn't necessarily characterize it as a donation if you're suggesting it's coming from a private source. The source has indicated to me that they prefer not to be identified at this particular point in time, and so I can't do that. I have to honor that request. At such time as the money is available, I'll bring it before the board to be approved.
Well, I think that in this, we agree to do that in these minutes here, and I'm not sure that we can agree to do that blindly, because I have no information, nor does, I believe, anyone else here, to make that decision today.
To make what decision is that?
To approve what's in these minutes says that we agree to do that.
To do what? What is
To
that?
accept the $25,000 anonymously from whatever source you have.
It does not say that, Mrs. Crowe. It doesn't say anything even remotely close to that.
It says that we will use the $25,000 from the contingency line item only if the source is not available to fund our portion. So we are agreeing to use that source and only use our contingency line money if that's not available. We're agreeing to that in these minutes.
Okay, that's the way you're interpreting it. I just told you that if the money becomes available, I will bring it before the board for final approval. Mr. Cromweedy.
Has Kankakee committed to their half of that?
I believe they're voting on it today at their
Today.
meeting being held the same time that we are, yes.
It would be my advice not to look a gift horse in the mouth and pursue this. I've lived on that river for 15 years. Many of the people that live in the district I represent also own and live on that river, and this is a problem. We keep kicking the can down the road, and it needs to be dealt with. This $25,000 is nothing compared to what it's going to look like in a few years.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and that's the reason for bringing this so the study can proceed. Mrs. Crowe.
I'm completely in support of the study and doing what needs to be done. I'm also for transparency in government, and this process opens us up to a whole bunch of questions.
Well,
It's a bad practice. It's not at all.
Next one, please.
I was hoping that maybe we even get some help from our soil and water district here locally, because it sounds like, I was hoping that we'd even hear some support from our local soil and water district regarding this issue of the $25,000, because I think it'd be beneficial for them, and they're basically a state-funded organization themselves.
I guess to put it another way, Mrs. Crowe, I'm pursuing alternate sources of funding so the money doesn't have to be spent out of the county's general fund. The people that I've talked to that are working on trying to make that money available have asked to remain anonymous until such time as all the red tape and other matters are taken care of. It's that simple. The idea is that we don't want to delay proceeding with the study. I think we have to step up to the plate and decide whether we're going to join in with the 8 counties in Indiana and Kankakee County in trying to get something resolved on this matter. I've been working diligently for over a month now trying towards that purpose. I've invested a lot of my time in that purpose. And I intend to continue that way because I believe that's probably the #1 project in the county right now. It's, as Mr. Crumweedy pointed out, the can has been kicked down the road far too many times. If somebody doesn't say this has gone far enough and we got to get something done, it won't happen. Mr. Lemay.
I would recommend then that we just commit to paying it and drop off any part that talks about money coming from someplace else. We just commit to paying it and forget about that. If that comes up at another meeting and somebody wants to reimburse us for it, that's fine. We can talk about it then. But for right now, I'm in agreement with Donna that anonymous things just shouldn't happen in a public meeting. And so I'm all for paying for it. We need to step up and do it. But forget about the other stuff and let's just do it.
No, I don't agree with that at all. Mrs. Crowe?
I think Vince has a reasonable resolution, and that would get us to move down the road. And I am all for going with the study and contributing the $25,000. If we have it, then let's spend our money. If your source comes through with $25,000, if the board approves that source, then the money can be put back, and we can move ahead to help the people affected by the flooding and find out what can be done. But to accept, or to enter into it with the idea that we're going to get an anonymous, whatever you want to call it, sourcing or donation or whatever word you want to put to it, just isn't transparent and it's not acceptable, and we are agreeing to things we don't know about.
Mr. Alt?
I think it's taking out the transparency if you take out the wording. This was what was said in the committee. This is a possibility going down the road. There's nothing wrong with keeping this in this. This is transparency. We have a right in the future to okay or reject any contributions made to this or any project.
Mrs. Johnson?
I don't know how many people in this room read the study, but I did, and I'm just like a little clarification. It doesn't really mention a whole lot about Iroquois County. It talks about the Yellow River and it talks about Kankakee, but it doesn't really address anything that's going to be done with the Iroquois River or anything that would affect Iroquois County. Was there more said at the meeting regarding that part of it?
Not really, but if you read the minutes from the Policy and Procedure Committee, I made those exact comments. Excuse me. On the other hand, if the Kankakee River is not cleaned out and improved, the Iroquois River will go nowhere. So by participating in the study, we're helping to get the Kankakee River straightened out. The study indicates that their work will go all the way to the mouth of the Kankakee River, which is over by Wilmington, I believe, somewhere in that area. And so if the Kankakee River continues to, the Kankakee River right now essentially is a blockade to water leaving Iroquois County.
I understand that, but my question will be then, when this turns around, since we've supported the study for essentially them, are they going to then in turn assist with the study when it actually moves farther into our county and would perhaps have more of an impact on Iroquois County? That's all I'm asking.
Well, I can't answer that question. I guess you'll need to come to some of the meetings over in Indiana and ask that question. Mr. Crumweedy.
There's a significant portion of the Iroquois River in Kankakee County, so it's inherent they're going to have to deal with it. Plus, the positive thing is they're finally dealing with this problem from the correct end instead of from east to west. They're going the other way. So.
This whole matter has many ramifications, and I think Iroquois County needs to come to the table. I've indicated in the Policy and Procedure Committee that I am hopeful that Iroquois County at some point in the not too distant future can become a part of that Kankakee River Basin Commission. I think that's something that would give us a voice at the table and probably answer some of the questions that Mrs. Johnson just brought up. I think we're moving in that direction right now, and if we don't move in that direction, we're sending a strong negative. Mr. Hasbar.
I spoke with the man that guided two of the engineers. They're doing the study, and what they mentioned was stopping the sand flow from the Yellow River. That was their basic thing they was going to do, and they were going to set up set up tiers along the sand dunes in the Yellow River to prevent the sand from coming from it to the Kankakee River, and thus it would quit flooding, quit building the sand up. But they didn't mention clearing it out, clearing any sand out.
What you mentioned is a small part of the thing. I think you need to understand, and everybody needs to understand, that a study is the first step in the process. After the study is completed, a plan can be formulated as to what action will be taken. Once that plan is formulated, then funding is sought to cover the cost of the plan. When the funding is secured, then the plan can begin to be implemented. And part of the reason for having all of the people involved in the river basins of the Kankakee River and the Iroquois River is that when it does come time for the funding, there's a much greater likelihood that the funds can be found if we have a large area of the country and the legislators from Indiana and Illinois, both federal and state, supporting the need for funding. The squeaking wheel that squeaks the loudest is the one that gets oiled. And I think if we just have a small part of the people that are asking for funding, nothing will happen. But the plan here is to get a large group, 8 counties in Indiana and 2 in Illinois, behind this thing. Mrs. Kroll.
Again, I am completely in support of the study. It's the funding that I have the problem with. So I'm okay with leaving the wording to correctly reflect what happened in the meeting, taking the $25,000 out of the contingency fund and addressing your source for covering those costs with whatever word you want to deem appropriate at a later date. And that it's that simple, and we can move ahead.
Mr. Sticknall.
Oh, George D. wanted to add something back there, Don.
Mrs. Shippert,
I just wanted to.
can you speak up?
I just wanted to make a couple points of clarification, just so that the board understands. There's a statement in here that says Administrator D. Shippert offered to assist in paying for the elevator installation at the Administrative Center. I could not make that commitment without Board of Health approval. So that's not something that's been discussed at a Board of Health meeting. And then the other thing that I thought I should probably clarify is there's another statement in a following meeting that says, he, meaning Dr. Yusuf, stated the health department used to pay for these charges, but he was informed they are no longer covering these charges. He means the state health department, not the local health department. I think that's a point that needs to be clarified as well.
Just the
Thank
language
you.
changes that we mentioned earlier, which are good points.
Yeah, Mr. Sticknall, did you have something?
Back to the water issue.
Back to the water issue. The people I have spoken to that are affected by the flood are desperate for something to be done, and they really don't care where the money comes from if it can help alleviate their floods, because they're really feeling bad, about being flooded. And I'm sorry. And they want something done as soon as possible, and where the money comes from is immaterial to them. They want something done.
Are there any other questions or comments?
John,
Mr. Bills?
I think this 25 grand, I don't care where it's coming from. We need to proceed with this. This is something that's been going on for years, this flooding issue. It continues to get worse and worse. Is this study going to help us really? It's going to help get the federal government involved. Because you know what, we got a whole bunch of different Corps of Engineers districts we're setting in here. The fish and wildlife people that have the most money to deal with, they should be involved with, because they're one of the main players, but they're all federal agencies. And so we got to get something going in between this bunch in this state and this bunch in this state to get the federal government involved. And this 25 grand, yeah, I know it's just a kind of like a good starting point. Donna, I'm sorry, where the money's coming from, if it's from the Milford Bank or it's from a bank that's from sand country. It doesn't matter to me, as long as we can get moving with it and move forward with it. I'm sure nothing in our lifetime will be ever come out of this, but we got to keep rolling in the same direction. Otherwise, there's going to be nothing down the road. And in this particular study, in particular, since the main action group is on the upstream side of the watershed, it really gets my attention thinking, they want to get rid of their water. Well, if they get rid of their water, where's it going to come? To the downstream side. And so there's a whole bunch of big caution flags to throw out, but let's proceed with this $25,000 commitment to them, and we'll play it by ear from there. Please.
Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Awful.
Yes.
Persley.
Yes.
Shore.
Yes.
Sticknot.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Alt.
Yes.
Bills. Crow. Curtis. Hasbargen. Johnson. Crumweedy.
Yes.
Lemay.
No.
So we got 11 yes, 3 negative, motion carried.
Okay, Tax Committee, Mr. Sticknot.
You did do the, on the agenda, the resolution to,
You don't have it listed separately.
no, it is listed separately under the Finance
Oh.
Committee resolution to increase.
Wait a
election
minute.
salary.
We got to do this resolution to increase the salary for the election judges. Everybody has a copy of that in front of them.
Do they?
It's on this, it's included with this part here. Are there any,
I'll move to request an increase.
seconded by Mr. Lemay, is there any questions or comments on this? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Awful. Persley.
Yes.
Shore.
Yes.
Sticknot.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Alt.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Crow. Curtis. Hasbargen. Johnson. Crumweedy. Lemay. McGinnis.
Yes.
Motion carried 14-0.
Okay, thank you. Tax Committee, Mr. Sticknot.
Mr. Chairman and members of the County Board, your committee to whom was referred tax would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Administrative Center on August 7, 2018 at 9 a.m. Members present were Crumweedy, Awful, Persley, Whitlow. Sticknot, Kokenauer, and McTaggart were absent. Also present, County Board Chairman John Schurer, County Clerk Lisa Fancher, Supervisor of Assessments Bob Yergler, ICPHD Administrator D. Shippert, Director of Environmental Health Terry Iman, Animal Control Director Dr. Youssef, candidate for Iroquois County Treasurer Bill Nutter, and Wendy Davis with the Times-Republic. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Persley and seconded by Whitlow to approve the agenda. Motion carried by a voice vote. The committee reviewed the claims. It was moved by Awful and seconded by Whitlow to pay the claims subject to County Board approval. Motion carried by a roll call vote. There were no public comments. Animal Control Director Dr. Youssef gave his report for July, which included 9 dogs picked up and brought to the clinic, 1 cat and 2 bats. The cat and both bats tested negative for rabies. Department heads gave their monthly reports. County Clerk Lisa Fancher reported she made a request for a $25 increase for election judge pay during her budget hearing. Election judges are currently paid $100 to work on election day, plus an additional $20 if they attend class, and $15 for attending class. Fancher would like to see their base pay be $125 plus the additional pay for attending class. Fancher said election judges haven't received a pay increase in over 10 years and they usually work a minimum of 15 hours a day. Even with the pay increase, we will still be paying less in surrounding counties. Fancher estimates the overall increase to be around $4,000 per election. Fancher requested the pay increase to be in effect with the November election. With approval from the tax committee, Fancher will prepare a resolution to bring before the finance committee for their approval as well. The tax committee agreed with the election judge pay increase and to forward the resolution to the finance committee. Supervisor of Assessments Bob Yergler reported assessor changes are complete and have been rolled to supervisor of assessment level. Yergler has been doing a lot of field work due to having 5 assessor vacancies. Yergler discussed the 2018 levy, stating he has been doing preliminary work to prepare for the levy. Last year's taxable EAV was $535,866,000, which generated an extension of $1,446,000. The amount of revenue budgeted in 2019 for property taxes is $1,440,000. Yergler said the 2 major factors that affect assessed evaluation are farmland reassessment and equalization. Currently, Yergler's taxable EAV is at $553 million with a corporate rate of 2.7%. This generates an extension of $1,494,000. Yergler suggested the property tax revenue amount be adjusted to $1,450,000 for the time being. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Awful and seconded by Whitlow to adjourn the meeting at 9:27 a.m. Motion carried by a voice vote, all of which is respectfully submitted, signed by those present, and I move for its adoption.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the tax committee report. Is there a second? Mr. Crumweedy. Are there any questions or comments on the report? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Persley.
Yes.
Shore.
Yes.
Sticknot.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Alt.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Crow.
Yes.
Curtis. Hasbargen. Johnson. Crumweedy.
Yes.
Lemay.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Awful. Motion carried 14-0.
Yeah, motion is approved 14-0. Health Committee, Mr. Crumweedy.
Mr. Chairman and members of the County Board, your committee to whom was referred Health would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Administrative Center on August 7th, 2018 at 9:36 a.m. Members present, Crumweedy, Awful, Persley, and Whitlow. McTaggart and Kokenauer were absent. Also present, County Board Chairman Scher, ICPHD Administrator D. Shippert, Director of Environmental Health Terry Iman, candidate for Iroquois County Treasurer Bill Nutter, and Wendy Davis with the Times-Republic. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Awful and seconded by Whitlow to approve the agenda. Motion carried by a voice vote. There were no public comments. The quarterly report from ABRA was distributed to the committee. Also, a preliminary budget from the ARC of Iroquois County was distributed. ICPHD Administrator Shippert distributed the grants and contracts report to the committee. Shippert said she was notified that some of the grants are to be combined with the Local Health Protection Grant. These grants include body art and tanning, lead poisoning case management program, safe drinking water, and vector control West Nile virus grant. ICPHD Administrator Shippert reviewed the program summary report with the committee. Excuse me. Director of Environmental Health, Terry Iman, reported a lot of water samples are still coming back unsatisfactory. Shippert noted the Adult Protective Services case numbers continue to increase. 2 longtime employees recently retired, but their replacements are doing a great job with handling the increased caseload. Shippert also said Champaign-Urbana Public Health Department is going to assist with the I-Plan. A revised food service and sanitation ordinance was distributed to the committee. Shippert explained all changes highlighted in yellow are additions to the ordinance. Shippert said the ordinance has been reviewed by the Board of Health and State's Attorney Jim Devine. Item discuss the ordinance stating the state is having all county health departments enforce the FDA food code by January 1st, 2019. The main difference between the 2013 food code and the 2017 food code is Category 2 facilities, which are considered medium risk, will have to have a food manager on duty at all times. It was moved by Awful and seconded by Whitlow to approve the food service and sanitation ordinance. A roll call vote was taken. The motion carried. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Persley and seconded by Whitlow to adjourn at 10:18 a.m. All which is respectfully submitted, signed by all members present. I move for its adoption.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the report of the Health Committee, seconded by Mrs. Awful. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Sure.
Yes.
Sticknot. Whitlow. Alt. Bills. Crow. Curtis. Hasbargen. Johnson. Crumweedy.
Yes.
Lemay. McGinnis. Awful. Persley.
Yes.
14-0, motion carried.
Motion's approved 14-0. IT Committee report, Mr. Crumweedy.
Mr. Chairman and members of the County Board, your committee to whom is referred IT would beg leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Administrative Center on August 7, 2018 at 10:28 a.m. Members present, Crumweedy, Bills, and Scher. Michael McTaggart was absent. Also present, County Clerk Lisa Fancher, ICT PhD Administrator D. Shippert, Michael Tabor with area-wide, candidate for Iroquois County Treasurer Bill Nutter, and Wendy Davis with the Times-Republic. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Bills and seconded by Scher to approve the agenda. Motion carried by a voice vote. There were no public comments. The committee reviewed the 2019 IT budget worksheet. IT Chairman Crumweedy suggested shifting some of the unused salary from the Finance Director position to area-wide to complete the projects. That wouldn't be shifting, that would be using. Crumweedy also asked Tabor with area-wide to assist with the pricing on some of the software contracts the county is paying. The committee agreed to leave the budgeted amount for the software contracts and licenses at $53,625 unless Tabor is able to lower the pricing. Actually, Tabor can't lower the pricing. He would have to negotiate to lower pricing. The 2018 budget for service contracts, which is area-wide, was $25,200. It looks like there's a verbiage error there. The committee also chose to increase this amount to $30,200 due to the lack of a finance director and the possible increase in service calls. Mr. Tabor provided a listing of recommended security upgrades and recommended infrastructure upgrades totaling, there's no amount there. The recommended security upgrades include a rebuild of the county's website and continued Microsoft upgrades before 2020. Crumweedy told the committee that the amount budgeted for the system's expense should increase to $45,000 to include these upgrades. County Clerk Lisa Fancher stressed the need for the security training and would like to see it enforced as soon as possible. Mr. Tabor explained the training is an online training for all employees. There is a $199 one-time setup fee and $713 per year for 25 users. It was moved by Bills and seconded by Scher to move forward with the security awareness training program for all users by department. Motion carried by a voice vote. The county's website was discussed. Fancher noted the current website has issues and is not user-friendly. Mr. Tabor told the committee he will research other county websites and report back to the committee. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Scher and seconded by Bills to adjourn at 12:11 p.m. Motion carried by a voice vote. All which is respectfully submitted, signed by all those present, and I move for its adoption.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the IT Committee report, seconded by Mr. Bills. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Stick Knot, excuse me, Whitlow.
Yes.
Alt.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Crow. She gone?
Must be,
Curtis.
Yes.
Hasbargen. Johnson. Crumweedy.
Yes.
Lemay.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Awful. Persley.
Yes.
Sure.
yes.
We got 12-1, motion carried.
Transportation and Highway, Mr. Bills.
Mr. Chairman, members of the County Board, your committee whom referred Transportation Highway would beg to leave to submit the following report on the matters before them. Your committee met at the Iroquois County Highway Building on August the 10th, 2018 at 9 a.m. Your members present was Bills, Alt, Bowman, Hashbargen, and Sherry Johnson. Also present, County Engineer Joel Moore, County Board candidate Roger Bard, and Wendy Davis of the Times-Republic. The meeting was called to order. It was moved by Larry Hashbargen and seconded by Kevin Bowman to approve the agenda. That motion carried. There were no public comments. The claims and financial reports for the month were reviewed. It was moved by Bowman and seconded by Charles Alt to pay the bills subject to County Board approval. A roll call vote was taken. That motion carried. County Highway was $66,737. County Bridge was $49,734. Township Bridge was $138,826. County motor fuel tax was $1,479,949. Township motor fuel tax was $695,288. County Engineer Joel Moore presented a resolution for County Highway 42 for culvert end sections. Moore stated the resolution was approved at a previous meeting, but the section number was printed incorrectly. It was moved by Hashbargen and seconded by Sherry Johnson to approve the resolution for County Highway 42 with the revised section number in the amount of $50,000. Motion carried by a voice vote. Moore reported 7 interviews were held for the vacancy in the maintenance position. He is currently waiting for a background check on 2 of the qualified candidates. As there was no further business to come before the committee, it was moved by Alt and seconded by Bowman to adjourn at 9:23 a.m. That motion carried. All which is respectfully submitted, signed by all those present, and I would move for the adoption of this report.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the Transportation and Highway Committee report, seconded by Mr. Alt. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Alt.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Crow. Curtis.
Yes.
Hasbargen. Johnson. Crumweedy. Lemay. McGinnis.
Yes.
Awful. Persley.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Sticknot.
Yes.
It's like,
Everybody has a copy of the claims in front of them, and there's a motion to approve the claims. Mr. Curtis, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Alt, are there any questions or comments on the claims? Seeing none, the clerk will call the roll, please.
Alt.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Curtis. Hasbargen.
No.
Johnson. Crumweedy, sorry. Lemay.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Awful. Persley.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Sticknot.
Yes.
Whitlow.
Yes.
Okay. Motion carried, I have no idea.
In front of you is a list of the appointments. Is there a motion to approve those? Mr. Whitlow, seconded by Mr. Curtis. Any questions or comments on the appointments? Seeing none, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Do we have any old business to come before the board today?
I mentioned under new business last month that we should consider a contract if our animal control officer is indeed a contract employee. Maybe she's not, but if she is, we need to consider a contract, and it hasn't been taken up yet. It's been a month.
Yeah, it was looked into, and it's not there is no contract involved. If you think a contract should be involved, then we can bring it before the tax committee.
I would like to put on the tax committee agenda.
Very well. Any other old business today? Is there any new business? Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Alt. Mr. Persley seconds. All in favor, aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.